All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. People will probably continue to trickle in, but they can just catch up. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. Today is about query-based reporting. My name is Tori Foley. I am Project Tech's Maximo Specialist and Project Coordinator. I'm going to demo a specific example on query-based reporting today. So before we get started, I just want to give everybody some reminders. This webinar is being recorded, and all of the phone lines have been muted. We will be sending out the recording by the end of the week. We will be answering all of your questions at the end of the webinar, so please submit your questions in the question box. There are a couple of polls that you can take if you'd like to, so they'll be under the polls section. So there are three specific parts of a query-based report in Maximo 7.6 that you should be aware of. That is the development, the creation, and the execution. The development part of query-based report uses what's called a report object structure. So report object structures contain pre-joined tables of data that the user can select fields from. They utilize relationships to join the tables together. There are some report object structures that are out of the box that your Maximo administrator can customize and maintain. They can also create new ones. These are the foundations of the QBRs. Once the report object structure is in place and you're ready to create your QBR, you're going to do that using the style, the content, and the basic formatting tabs. So all of this is customizable by you inside of the QBR. This is what makes these pretty user-friendly because you can do it inside of there instead of having to have a report developer do this on their own. In Maximo 7.6, they have introduced calculations and summarizations as part of the QBRs, which we're going to demonstrate today. The last part of creating a QBR is the execution. This is giving you the ability to save and schedule your report. You can make the report public for other users. You can also schedule your report to run in the future and email out to others. And then you also have the ability to export in different formats. So one thing that I like to do, and I also recommend when you're creating a report, is to prepare the information ahead of time. If you go ahead and get a list of all of your desired fields, if you decide if you want any filtering, any grouping, if you want totals to be on your report, if you put all of that together ahead of time, all you're worrying about is adding it all onto the report and getting your formatting the way that you want it, and this makes the report development a little bit easier. So today we're actually going to create a report that's going to show completed work orders with costing information. So I've just listed a few fields that we're going to put onto this report. We're going to want the site. We're also going to want the work order number, the description, the location, the asset, the work type, the supervisor, and then we're going to pull in our cost. So that's going to be actual labor and actual material cost. So I have a star by total cost because we are going to use the new calculation abilities in 7.6 to make a total cost field using actual labor and actual material. We'll do a little bit of grouping, and we'll do a little bit of filtering in the list tab before we run the report as well. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into our demo. So I'm just going to use a demo environment here. Anytime you're creating a report, you always want to make sure that you do this in some sort of development environment before you run it against production. You do have the ability to, if you don't do filtering correctly, you can cause strain on the resources of the server, and you want to try to not make that happen. Okay, so we're going to use our Find navigation that's available in 7.6. We're going to go to work order tracking. Okay, so once we get into here, there are a couple of different options for how you can access the ability to create a report. You have the ability to do so from under Common Actions. You can create report directly from here. Or under More Actions, if you go to Run Reports, you then have the ability to create a report there as well. So what we're going to do first before we create our report is we're actually going to search for some records on the List tab. We're not going to save this query with our QBR, but we do want to go ahead and have some ready so that we can run it against this. So we're just going to look for completed work orders. So we have about 85. And we're going to run our report against that. Okay, so now I'm ready to create a report. So the first thing that you're going to see when you get your QBR window is the Style tab. So the Style tab first gives you the ability to choose between a list report and a detail report. So the difference is, it's pretty similar of those two. A list report does just that. It lists data. You can group, you can sort, you can give it some calculations. This is the report type that's used most frequently when exporting into Excel. With a detail report, you get a little bit more information. It's going to give you page breaks between all of your record details. So if you do this for work orders, each page would be a specific work order with the information relating to that work order. A detail report also allows you to use a one-to-many relationship in your report object structure. Next, we have the checkbox for Apply Application Query. So what this does is it actually pulls the query that's in the application that you're creating the report currently and saves it with the report. So if we were to leave this checked, this report would only ever look for work orders in the Bedford site that are in a complete status. Generally, you don't want to do this if you want to be able to run this report against other queries. So we're actually going to just uncheck that. If you decide that you want to save your report and you want other people to be able to use it in the future, or you want to be able to run this report and schedule it, you have to give it a title. So we're going to go ahead and call this Completed Work Orders with Cost. If I wanted to be able to share this report and let other people view it, I could check the share box. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that unchecked for now. We're going to head over to the Content tab. So the Content tab is where you're going to get into the meat of your report. This is where you're going to be able to choose the fields that you want to see on your report. So first, we're going to go over the parent category. This is going to pull the report object structure that the user has access to in the application. So right now, we're on the work order details with actuals and plans. So I'm logged in as the administrator, so I have access to both of the reporting object structures that are in here. Whoever is your administrator in Maximo will be able to set this security for you. I've chosen the one that I need to be able to pull the correct information for me. As you can see, this is all of the tables that are related to each other underneath this reporting object structure. So next, I have my available fields section. So this is going to give me the fields that I want to see on my report. It defaults to the parent category, which is the work order details. So this is every field that's available as a persistent field in the work order object. I can scroll through here and search for any fields that I need. I can also type them in at the top and hit enter and search for them that way. If I wanted to pull something from the asset table, I would just click asset and then I could search for it here. I could do the same thing with any of these other objects. You can see at the bottom the selected fields brought in a few fields already. So what these are is these are actually the fields that are on your list tab. So any fields that you have on the list tab are going to be pulled defaulted into the selected fields of your report. You can keep them on there. If you need to remove any of them, you have the ability to do that as well. So I know that I don't want to see my scheduled start as part of the report that I'm doing now. So I can just check the box. I don't want to see my priority either. I'm going to check that as well. And then I'm going to remove selected. I want to order these a little bit differently. To do that, I just change the order. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put site first, and then my work order number, my description. You have the ability to number these any way that you would like, and then you just hit refresh, and it's going to resort them. So I have a couple of other fields that I want to add on here. So I'm going to go back up to available fields. Right now I'm back on the work order details object, which is where I want to pull these fields from. So I'm looking for the work type. So once I find the field that I would like, I check the box and add selected. It will default it as the last field, which I'm okay with that for right now. So we're just going to leave that there. I also have a couple of other fields that I want to add. So I'm going to grab my actual material cost, and I'll add that. And then I'm going to do my actual labor cost. And I'll get that added as well. So you can see those were added at the end of my report. So I also can go through and change the labels now. And I'm going to just change a couple of these. I like it to be short and sweet at the beginning, so I'll go ahead and do all of that. And these can be whatever you'd like your labels to be when you're creating your report. If you want it to be the full words, you can do that. This is totally up to you. This is the customizable part where you get to make this as you need it. Okay, we're going to head over to the Calculate tab. This is new in Maximo 7.6. This allows you to choose fields and perform certain calculations on them and add them to the QBR. So the calculation that we're looking for is the actual labor cost and the actual material cost. We want to add those together per work order and give us the total cost of the work order. So right off the bat, when you come into this tab, you still see your list of objects over here on the left side. On the right side, you still have available fields, but notice that this amount is considerably less. Maximo already filters down these fields to only give you the fields that you can actually perform calculations on in the report. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose my actual labor cost field. Then I'm going to look for my actual material cost. Now I've added both of those. And I want to add these two together. So if you notice, it's not just giving us fields that we use on the report. It's giving us any calculatable field that's listed in the object. So we don't have to choose, we don't have to put these on the report, and we can still calculate with them and show a total if we wanted to do that. So once I've added these in here, I can go ahead over to the right side. I can test my expression. So it looks like my expression is working. I can give it a name. I can choose the data type. If I need it to be something else, I can change it here. And then I would just add it down to the expressions that are going to show up on the report. So if I had 5 different calculations in here, I would then get to order them the way that I want them to show on the report. They will always be added to the right side of the other fields. Now to the summarization field. The tab. This is the other tab that's new in 7.6. So this gives you the ability to do some summarizations on your report, which wasn't available before. Again, it's the same object list as before. It gives you the available fields that can be summarized on. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for actual material cost. So I'm going to add that here so it shows the field, and then you have to choose the function that you wish to perform against the field. So you have several different options up here. I'm going to choose total, so I want to be able to see the total of the actual material cost. And I'm going to add that value as a summary onto my report. And now I'm going to look for actual labor cost. And I'm just going to do the same thing. Choose it as a value. I'm going to choose total as my function. Then I'm going to add that to my summaries listed at the bottom. I can decide what order I would like these to appear in. I'll show you once we run the report where these are going to show up at. They're a little different area of the report, but we'll go over that when we run it. And now we have our Format tab. So this Format tab has been the same since 7.5, so this should all look pretty familiar. So first you have the ability to filter. Generally, we recommend that you filter for the report on the List tab and not on the report itself. That way you can use this QBR against different sets of data. So we've already done our filtering. We've got it down to 85 work orders that are complete in our Bedford site. So we're just going to leave this filter alone, but I can show you. It'll list the fields that are available for filtering, and you would just choose the field that you would like. We are going to do a little bit of grouping in here, though. So I actually want to group. I want to group on my location. So we've already got it down to one site, so grouping on site wouldn't matter. We'd still just have the one group. I want to filter on location, but then I want to add a second layer of grouping. So location first, and then I want to group by asset. If you decided that you didn't want to do these groupings anymore, you could just do remove all, and it would get rid of both of them. But I still want to do them, so I'm just going to go back and add them. You also have the ability to sort. So if I want to choose some field to sort on, again, there's no, the calculated field is not available on here, so I can't sort on my calculations, but I can sort on any of these other fields. So now I can do a preview of my report. So if I think maybe I want to make a change to this, I'm not sure yet, I don't want to save it. So we can preview. We'll just go ahead and let that run, and then it's going to open up into a new tab, which if you have pop-up blocker turned on, you want to make sure that you turn off so that you can open that tab. Okay, so this is the report that we just created. So at the top, this is where your totals will show up. So first we have a total for the entire report. This is our total actual material cost and total actual labor cost. Then they also do the totals by our groupings. So first we have the work orders where there's no location or asset, and then no location but different assets. And you can see on the far right hand side, this is where our calculated field is. So we added up actual material costs and actual labor costs for our total cost per work order, and that's what's listed on the far right. So you can also see when we made our groupings, it took those fields out of the report and added them into the group section at the top. We can go through our different pages. When you go to the end, you can get a number of records that are running for the report. So we agree that this should be 85. That's how many work orders we showed at the beginning when we searched, so that's correct. And it's also going to give us a runtime where clause. So this is going to show us the where clause that's being run to pull the work orders onto our report. This should be the same where clause that was run on the list tab, and that looks to be so I think I'm okay with that. But I think I'm missing something on my report. I want to add my supervisor. So since I didn't save it, I can just close this tab. My report's still open. I'm going to go back to my content tab, and I want to be able to view the supervisor. So I'm going to search for that. So I clicked the name instead of checking the box, so it added it automatically for me. And I don't think that I want it to be at the end. I want it to be before the cost fields. So I'm just going to change the order of my fields here. And I'm going to refresh so that it will reorder them for me. That looks to be correct. I'm going to go back to my Format tab because I don't want to group by asset anymore. I want to group by location and by supervisor. So I'm going to do location again, and then supervisor. And I'm going to preview my report again. So notice when I took the asset off of my grouping and added it back into my report. So I didn't remove it from my report, I just removed it as a grouping. So now I have it back in the same spot that I had numbered it as before. My supervisor is now listed up there. So now I can go through here. It'll group by location first, and then it will group by supervisor. I get my total per location per supervisor. And we can see all of our different work orders, all the different costs. We have status, we have the work type, we have asset information. So for some of these assets, we have the numbers listed, but I don't have the asset description on here. So say you want to see the asset description. So we're just going to go back to our report. We'll go back to our content tab. So the asset description is not saved under the work order table, but because we're using an out-of-the-box reporting object structure, the asset table is already related to the work order table. So I can just go to asset. I can search for the description. And I can add it into my report. But I want it to be next to my asset, which is number 5. So I'm going to make this number 6. And I'm not going to renumber the other ones. I'm just going to hit refresh. And it didn't reorder all the way for me, so I'm going to go ahead and just switch the status and the asset description. Okay. So now I want to change my label here, and I want to make sure that I put that this is the asset description. And I'm going to preview the report again. Okay, so now I have assets, and I also have asset descriptions. You can do the same thing for location. If you feel like you want to see the location and the location description, you can add that in as well. And I think maybe because I'm already filtering for status of comp, I'm just going to remove that from my report. So this button, the preview report button, is very useful. So you don't have to save every time and then try to reopen the report. If you just preview it and decide you want to make changes, you can keep going back and forth. I find that to be very helpful. So if I have the status field on here, but I want to remove it, I'm just going to check the box. Make sure you don't hit remove all. You want to hit remove selected. And it will renumber it for you automatically. So now I'm going to go back to preview report. Okay, we're back to our report. So you can see that Maximo and the QBR does do some formatting for you automatically. So if I were to take some of these fields out, the descriptions, they write justify. You can see that they give a little bit more extra space on the left in case the descriptions are longer. Depending on the field type, the QBR tries to determine for you up front how big of a space you're going to need. So you can try to fit as many of these fields on here as you can, but eventually you're going to start to run out of room. So you want to be careful how many you're just putting onto a QBR. But this is a pretty basic report. We've got some good information, but it's very simple. It was easy to create. And I think that I'm ready to save my report now. I've got all my information in here. Let's go back and make sure that I have my title. I've got all that there. If I didn't have a title, I wouldn't be able to save it. It would just run the report. If I wanted other people to be able to run it, I could check share. But I think I'm good for this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run and I'm going to save. So what it's doing is it's just committing it into the database and then it's running the report in another tab. So I'm seeing the same report. I can go through here and make sure that I have all the correct information. But this time when I close my tab, I'm back into my work order tracking screen. The ad hoc reporting box is not open anymore. But if I want to be able to run that report, you're just going to go back like you would run any other report. And I'm going to see completed work orders with cost. I have an edit button and I have a delete button. Because I didn't make this public, no one else is going to see this under Run Reports. It's just me. Your Maximo administrator can go to Report Administration, and they can see that you created it, but no one else is going to see this report other than you unless you make it public. So if I want to come back in here, I want to run this. So now I have some options. So I can run this immediately, which is just going to show us what we've been seeing when we've been previewing it. I just get my report automatically. I also have some other abilities. I can schedule this report. I can schedule it to run one specific time. Say this was a one-time thing that I want to run later today, and I want it to run at 3 o'clock. So I come in here, the date's already chosen, I choose 3 o'clock. I can hit OK. So it puts that in there for me. Notice now that the email section is shown and that 2 is required. So I have to give this an email address because you can't schedule it without somewhere to send it. So I have somebody to send it to. I can give it a subject. So I want to say this is work orders that have been completed. The comments is going to show us the body of the email. Now you have the ability to choose a different file type. It's going to default to a PDF, but you can change it to different kinds of Excel spreadsheets if you'd like. So I'm going to leave mine as a PDF, but we'll go back and look at an Excel spreadsheet here in a minute. You also can choose the report delivery format. So this will either send it as an attachment on your email, or you can send them a link that they have to click to pull up the attachment. It defaults to the file attachment. We recommend just leaving it there. Okay, so my time is not working. Apparently I chose a time in the past, and I did. Maximo is going to be in military time, so make sure you do that correctly. Okay, I'm just going to choose that time. There we go. Well, that's the original time. That's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to submit this because I want that schedule to work. So it was successfully scheduled. So now I can view my schedule. So if I wanted another way to view my schedule, if you know that you've scheduled a report, say you schedule it for 3 p.m., and you want to make sure that the email address that you sent it to is correct. If you go into the application you scheduled it in, if you go to Run Reports, then you go to Schedules, you should see anything that you yourself have scheduled in that application. If someone else scheduled it, you will not be able to view it. You can only view what you have scheduled. I can make changes here if I'd like. I can add more people. I can send it to somebody different. I can remove myself from here. I can also change my file type, my delivery format here as well. But I've decided that I actually need this to be sent more frequently than just the one time, so I'm just going to delete this. Now if I go back to Run Reports, go to Schedules, my schedule is no longer there. So now I want to go ahead and I want to schedule this to be recurring. So you can start every hour. You can do days, weeks, months. So I'm going to do this. I want this to come once a month. And I want it to be on the last Friday of every month. Let's do that. We'll do the afternoon. So if I was scheduling this, maybe I had a supervisor that wanted to see some information pretty frequently. I could do that here. So once you have your schedule, you can also do preview, and it's going to show you how frequently it's going to run, what the dates are, what times. Give you a little preview of how frequently that's going to happen. I've got my schedule correct. Again, your email is not required. And this is the same as the sending it for just a one-time delivery. I can still pick my file type. I can pick the report delivery format. I would submit that. I can view to make sure that my schedule is correct. It all looks good. Okay. So now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to run this report now. We have several different ways that we can export this if you run it just immediately. So you can just print this directly, or I can go ahead and I'm just going to export. It's going to default to the PDF to all pages. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then just have to wait for it to download. Okay, so there's that. So this is what your report's going to look like as PDF format. And it looks basically the same as it does in HTML. I've got a few more pages here, just as it's spreading stuff out. Okay. You also have the ability to export into a spreadsheet. So we're going to look at the spreadsheet. And it does give you a couple of different options, so it depends on what version of Excel you're working with. We're just going to give it a second to download. Okay. And that has opened up into Excel. Okay, so this is what our Excel spreadsheet looks like. So this would be if you wanted to do any kind of working of the data, you would download it into an Excel spreadsheet. Where you could make some changes in here, you could format some different ways than what was available in our QBR. If you're really good at Excel, then you would want to be able to download this. We have other options to export to as well if you would ever need any of these. So I can put this into a Word doc if I want to. We'll check that out. And again, this looks like it does in the HTML format. There's not much that has changed here. You also have the ability to just export the data out of the report instead of exporting the entire report. So you could just choose specific fields that you want to pull out and then delete them into a comma-separated value report. Then I can also just print it. So let's check out some questions, if anybody's got questions so far. Okay, so I see one. For the supervisor field, the data that is entered, is it a number or name? So this depends on how you are tracking that information. It can be first initial, last name. It can be a number. It depends on how you guys have your supervisor information set up. So if you want it to be like an employee ID number, you could set it up in Maximo that way. If you wanted it to be the same as a username or a password, the person record, depending on what you guys prefer, that's how you could do it. Let's check another one. Okay, so what if you have more than one person, a supervisor or multiple people to send the report to? So you can send to multiple people. You separate the email addresses a little bit differently than you do in Word or in Outlook. So if I set this to be recurring, I'm just going to leave it at every day at, just send in the afternoon. So if I wanted to send this to multiple people, you actually separate it with a comma. So in Outlook you would use a semicolon, but in Maximo you have to use a comma. And it will not give you an error, so if you put semicolons in here and forget about the comma, it's going to save. It's going to think, you're going to think that you have scheduled it correctly, but then you will not ever send out a report and there will never be an error. You will never know why until you remember that you have to do it with a comma. Let's check for some more questions. So right now we're in version 7.6 of Maximo. 7.6 is the only version where you can do the calculations and the summarizations. So if you are using a 7.5 version of Maximo, you would just not see those tabs. So if I were to go back to edit my report, I forgot that I scheduled it. Let's remove our schedule. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you have scheduled your report and you need to make changes to it, you will not be able to make changes until you have unscheduled or deleted your schedule. So we're going to go back in here to edit it. So the calculate and the summarization tabs are new in 7.6. So if you were in an older version of Maximo, you're not going to see those two tabs. They also in 7.6 are controlled by security options. So if you are using 7.6 and you do not see those, you can talk to your Maximo administrator about getting the ability to view those. Let's check for some more questions really quick. Okay, so I see a question asking if the justification of the fields can be changed when you export the data. To my knowledge, you cannot change the way that the fields are justified for the export. You can if you have people that are BERT developers. So the BERT report is the platform that this QBR is run on. If you have BERT report developers, you can export the report from Maximo and you can open it back up in BERT to change the format, but other than that you won't be able to make changes to the justification just specifically for the QBR. So I see another question, which actually I just talked about really quickly. For advanced editing, can we call this report into BERT for the Eclipse editor? Yes. So you would do, like I mentioned, you would just export the report. You would do that from the application server, so you'd have to get it you'd have to get an administrator to do that for you. You would just export the report, and then you would open it up into Eclipse to make the changes for advanced editing, the formatting, whatever changes you needed. Okay, do we have any other questions? Is there anything that I haven't touched on, anything that I haven't mentioned? Any questions that I didn't answer clearly enough for anybody? So somebody just asked if we can summarize the calculated columns. So if I could have done a summarization of total. So we can go back in here and look at this. So when I go to summarize, I only have fields that are available inside of the objects. I don't have the ability to add a summarization of a field that I created in the Calculate tab, which is unfortunate, but no, you cannot add a summarization of a field that you're calculating on. So yes, if I just had someone ask if you put a date range into the query that you're running the report against, can you just run the report again using different dates? You absolutely can. So that's part of the big recommendation is whenever you create a QBR, make sure you uncheck this apply application query box so that you can create this QBR and then you can run it against any different sets of data. So notice actually that I can't make a change to this. So if you were to create a QBR and you were to accidentally leave that box checked and then save it, you couldn't come back in here, edit it, and uncheck the box. You would have to recreate your report entirely. But I actually, because I've saved it without it, I could do any kind of queries. So I could come in here and I only want to see anything where the scheduled start date is greater than, we'll do January 1st of last year. So I'm down to 21 work orders. I can go back, I can run my report, and it's only going to run against those 21 work orders. So notice how I only have one page, and my number of records is listed as 21 at the bottom. So as long as you don't check that box when you're creating your report, you do have the ability to run it against different queries. All right, any other questions? Anything that wasn't clear while I was creating the report, or anything you're just generally wondering about? If people find, really quickly, sorry, we just got one last minute question, asking if you can display the supervisor display name instead of the person ID. So yes, absolutely. You do have to make sure that the correct object is in your report object structure. So this may be something that your Maximo administrator will have to do for you. But the same way that I went into asset and pulled the asset description, if I wanted to show my, instead of supervisor, I wanted to see the display name. I'm not sure that I have, no. So I have a labor details. I could pull information from there. But what you would do is you would actually just, you would relate your person table to your work order. Again, it's something that your Maximo administrator could do for you. So when we got one more question, when the report is scheduled, how does it know that the runtime query if the application query is not used? So this is going to be, you're going to schedule the report against a query when you run it. So it's going to save the query for, it's going to save the query that is run while you're scheduling the report. We just got one more question. Can you actually use this report and duplicate it and make some changes? So you don't have the ability to duplicate a QBR in here. You would have to create a brand new one to give you the same information. Or you could just make changes to the original one, but there is no duplicate option. Okay, so really quickly, we're going to go over, we actually have another webinar that's going to be happening in a couple of weeks. Okay, so the next webinar that we're going to be giving is going to be over key performance indicators. So this is going to happen on Wednesday, February 15th, and it'll be at 2 p.m. Our Maximo admin project manager, Dustin Haley, is actually going to dive into some KPI information in Maximo. So we're going to go over key performance indicator templates and the viewer enhancements. And we're going to show you how that all fits into the KPI deployment. We'll, again, we'll be answering questions at the end of that webinar, so make sure that you get involved. We do have a survey that's going to be available at the end of every webinar, so if you guys wouldn't mind taking that survey for me today, and then when you join Dustin for our next webinar, make sure you take the survey then as well. Okay, and did anybody take any of our polls? If you didn't, it is available. I don't know what I clicked there. Sorry about that, guys. So the questions that were on our polls were what version of Maximo are you using and what database are you using? So if you'd like to jump on that really quick and answer that poll for us, that would be great. If you have any other questions, be sure to follow up with us after this is over if we didn't meet anything, or if you have any suggestions for future webinars, we absolutely will take those as well. I would like to thank everybody for joining, and I hope everybody has a great day.